Okay, now it's time to join, after you've made all of your strips, join them up to your large square. So I've actually made a head start on this. The first thing I did was to join a strip of 5 along one side, actually 5 on one side, 5 on the other side, and then I joined a strip of 7 up the long side. So all I've got left to do is to join a strip of 7, but it's the same process for all of them. So I will just show you how to do that. So you start with your blanket, your centerpiece face up, and then put your strip face down so that the joins are on the back. And we're going to start by joining square to square, and then we join this strip of squares to the large centerpiece. Alright, I'm just doing the same join we did to join our squares. So yarn on your hook with a slip knot. And through the 2 chain space on this square, the 2 chain space on this square, we work a standing double crochet UK, single crochet US. Try that again. Okay, now we work a stitch in every stitch through both loops and both loops of the other one. I'm going to crochet over my end as I go. So because we're joining the same squares, it will match up exactly. I'm going to do all of these side stitches, and then I'm going to show you what happens when we get to the join. Okay, I've got 2 more stitches to join before the join of the strips. Okay, so now I've reached the 2 chain space of both squares. I'm going to do a joining stitch in that 2 chain spaces of both. Then I'm going to skip the joins and go straight to the 2 chain spaces of the next small square and the large square on the back. And again, we're just going to do a stitch in every stitch, but when we get to the join of this strip on the top, I'm going to show you something a little bit different. But it's just 1 joining stitch in every stitch. The stitch counts should match. You've got 107 stitches along the side of your large square, plus a 2 chain corner space in each side, so 109 joining stitches. And along the side of your large square, you've got 5 squares of 19 stitches plus the corner spaces, and the maths all works out. You use the same number of stitches on both sides as you go. Okay, I've got 2 more stitches left on this square on top. Sorry, I'm not sure why it's not staying in focus. Okay, so now we use the 2 chain space and the next stitch of the big square. Now we're actually going to use the join. So we're going to poke our hook in the join, and then the next stitch, and then the 2 chain space of this square and the next stitch. So between each of the side stitches we've got 3 stitches, 2 chain space, 1 in the join, 1 in the 2 chain space. And what that looks like is here. 1, 2, 3 joining stitches. Then we just continue on all the way. Okay, so once you've joined all of your small squares around, it's time to go back to doing just the giant granny square. So yarn on your hook with a slip knot, and we're going to attach with a standing double crochet UK, single crochet US in a 2 chain corner space. Don't know why I'm having so much trouble with that today. Then we're going to do a double crochet UK, single crochet US in every stitch. And then when we get to the join, I'm going to do something a little bit different. Okay, almost at the join, one more stitch to go. Do one in the 2 chain space, and then I'm going to do a stitch in the join, but this time I'm going to go through the back of the join. Then in the 2 chain space, and then one in every stitch. Now the corners is 1 stitch, chain 2, 1 stitch, and then the next 2 rounds are just simple rounds. Next round, round 51, is all trebles UK, doubles US, and round 52 is all doubles UK, singles US. You don't need to see me make those. So I will come back to video to show you round 53. Okay, here we are at the end of round 52, ready to start round 53. Now first stitch is a double crochet UK, single crochet US over the joining stitch, so in the hole there. Then we're going to skip 3 stitches, 1, 2, 3, and do 7 trebles UK, doubles US in the next stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Then we skip 2 stitches, do a double crochet UK, single crochet US in the next stitch, skip 2, 1, 2, and 7 in the next. I'll do that all the way along the side. We should end up with 26 lots of 7 stitches. And we're going to skip 3 at the start and skip 3 at the end, but I'll show you the end when I get there. Okay, here I am almost at the end of the side. I've done 25 lots of 7 stitches. I need to skip 2. Oops. 1, 2, double crochet UK, single crochet US. Skip 2. 1, 2. 7 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and at the end of the side we should have 3 stitches to skip. 1, 2, 3, and then we just do 1 stitch in our 2 chain corner space, double crochet UK, single crochet US. We do that all the way around. Okay, so here we are at the end of round 53. I've done my last set of 7 stitches. I just need to skip 3 and join with a slip stitch to my first stitch. And we're off and running for the next round. First stitch is the same, a stitch in the same stitch as our slip stitch. And then we're going to do front post stitches around all of the stitches along the sides. Let me show you from a different colour. Okay, so the stitch in the same, in our corner stitch, same stitch as the slip stitch. Then I'm going to do a front post treble UK, front post double US around the next 7 stitches. 1, oops, 2, 3, so I'll tangle it up. It's getting heavy. 4, 5, 6, 7. So front post trebles UK, doubles US. Oh goodness me, Then around the stitch in between your 2 stitches, we're going to do a front post double crochet UK, single crochet US. So poking my hook like this, and that's it. Do 7 all the way around. The only time we're not doing a front post stitch is in the very corner. So when you get to this turning corner bit, you're just going to do 1 stitch in that stitch, double crochet UK, single crochet US. But other than that, pretty easy. Okay, here I am at the end of round 54. I just need to join with a slip stitch to my first stitch. And it's on to round 55. Now we're only working into round 54 stitches in the corners, where we're going to do 2 stitches, chain 2, 2 stitches, trebles UK, doubles US. The rest of the stitches we're going to be working into the round 53 stitches that are left free because we did front post stitches all the way around. But let's kick off. So we start with chain 3, starting chain or a false stitch, then a treble UK WS in the same stitch as your slip stitch. And that's our first corner started. We'll finish that at the end of the round. Now, the very first stitch we do is a treble UK WS into that first stitch of round 53 behind. Then we do a half stitch, half treble UK, half WS in the next stitch. Then we do a double crochet UK, single crochet US in the next 3. Then a half stitch. And now over the next 3 stitches, which should be the last one of your 7, the one in the dip, and then the first of the next 7, we're crocheting them all together. So treble crochet 3 together UK, double crochet 3 together US. So start 1 stitch there, yarn over, start another stitch there, yarn over, start another stitch there, and then we're back to our repeat. So a half stitch, 3 small stitches, 1, 2, 3, a half stitch, and then crochet 3 together in the dip. Oops. I'm just pushing the round 54 stitches in forwards as I go. Whoops. Save that one. Okay, so I'll do that all the way along the side. You just need to remember that your last stitch of the side is different, so I'll show you that in a moment. Okay, here I am almost at my first corner. I've done my 3 double crochets UK, single crochets US. I need to do 1 half stitch, and then in that last stitch of round 53 I'm doing a treble UK WS, and then I'm going to use this corner stitch to make my corner, which is 2 stitches, 1, 2, chain 2, and 2 more stitches. That's it. That's our corner. Then I'm back to doing all of the stitches behind. I'll show you how to finish this off soon. Alright, here we are at the end of round 55. I just need to do 2 stitches in the same stitch as my first stitches, trebles UK, doubles US. Then I'm going to chain 1 and join with a double crochet UK, single crochet US to my first stitch. Just through 1 loop if you've done chain 3, or 2 if you've done a false stitch like me. Okay, then we're on to round 56. We start with a stitch over the joining stitch, so in the big hole in between the stitches, the corner stitches, double crochet UK, single crochet US. Then we do 5 of the same stitch, well, the same stitch in the next 5 stitches, I should say. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now you see how these stitches are sort of sitting forward. We're going to catch one of them as we do our next stitch. I'm going to show you in a different colour. So here we are at the same point. I've done 5 double crochets UK, single crochets US. Now what we're going to do is we're going to catch the loop behind V of the middle stitch of these 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the 4th stitch. The loop behind V is this little loop on the back. We poke our hook in there, and then we also poke our hook in the next stitch on the back. And we work with a double crochet UK, single crochet US. So then we've caught, so it won't sit forward anymore, it's going to sit back. Now we do the same stitch in the next 2 stitches. 1, 2, and the next one should be the 3 together, which it is. So we're going to do a front post stitch around that one, like that. Then we do a double crochet UK, single crochet US in the next 2. 1, 2, and then we're back to doing one in the loop behind V, catching it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, the 4th one in that loop and in there, and that's our little repeat. So all of these are going to get a slight point to them, and they're going to be held down. In the corner we're just doing 1 stitch, chain 2, 1 stitch, double crochet UK, single crochet US, stitch, chain 2, stitch. Alright, I'll do that all the way around and show you the next bit. Okay, I'll just take you through the end of the side. So I've done my last, caught my last loop behind V, and I have 5 stitches left before I get to my corner. So just double crochets UK, single crochets US, 2, 3, 4, 5, and here is that corner that I described oh so well. Stitch, chain 2, and a stitch, and then we're off again with 5 stitches and catching. Okay, here we are at the end of round 56. We just need to do a stitch in the same hole as our first stitches. Then we're going to chain 1 and join with a double crochet UK, single crochet US to our first stitch. Alright, next round, chain 3 starting chain or a false stitch, and then a treble UK or a double US over the joining stitch, so into the hole between the 2 stitches. And then we're going to go on to create some crossed stitches like we've done it before down here where we did these little 3 stitch crosses, but there's something a little bit tricky I want to show you at the start, but I'm going to do it with a different colour to show you a bit clearer. Okay, sorry, myself sorted out. Alright, so I've done the first 2 stitches. Now it says at the start to skip 1 stitch, so that stitch there, that corner stitch, we're not going to use at all. Then we start our repeat, so just pretend that stitch isn't there. For the rest, we're going to use every other stitch of the round, but this first stitch here we're going to skip completely. There's not going to be a skip one at the end of this row side. So skip that stitch and then we start our repeat. So then it says to skip 2 stitches. So really at the very first one we're skipping 3. And we're working a treble UK WS in the next stitch. Then we're going to go back and work a stitch in this second stitch that we skipped. And then we go back and work a stitch in that first stitch we skipped in the proper repeat. So there's a little stitch there that hasn't been used at all, and that's fine. And now we just go on with making our cross stitches. So again, just be careful you don't think this is the first one to skip, because you can see the blue yarn there is worked into that stitch. So 1, 2, 3, this is where we're going to start our next one. Back here and back here. So you can see there's no stitch skipped in between. Both of those stitches have something worked into them. It's only this very first one that's skipped. And the corners are 2 stitches, chain 2, 2 stitches. Okay, here we are at the end of round 57. I just need to do 2 stitches in the same space as my first 2 stitches. 1, 2, chain 1 and join with a double crochet UK, single crochet US to your first stitch. Oops. Okay, round 58 is really easy. So a double crochet UK, single crochet US over the joining stitch into the gap. Then we have a stitch in the next 2 stitches, same stitch all the way around. Now we're going to do a stitch in the gap between the stitches, then a stitch in the next 3, 1, so the 3 of your cross, 2, 3, then between your crosses. So nice and easy, just a stitch between as well as a stitch in all of your cross stitches. And the corners is 1 stitch, chain 2, 1 stitch. Easy. Okay, here we are at the end of round 58. I just need to do a stitch in the same space as our first stitch. Chain 1, join with a double crochet UK, single crochet US to your first stitch. Okay, round 59. We're going to chain 3 starting chain or a false stitch, and then a stitch over the joining stitch, so in what is the 2 chain space effectively, treble UK WS. Then we're going to do the same stitch in the next stitch. Okay, now we're going to be working around the round 57 stitches, these ones here. We're going to do a front post, double treble UK or a front post triple US. So I've yarned over twice, then around the post of that stitch from round 57, and then I'll do that again around the next stitch. Then this stitch here, the next, we're going to skip the 2 stitches behind, 1, 2, and the next stitch is the one that went between the groups of stitches. We're going to do a half treble UK or a half double US. Okay, now the next, this is where the repeat begins with that half stitch there. We're going to work around these stitches again. We're going to crochet together these 3 stitches using double trebles UK or triples US. So yarn over twice around that first one, through 2, stop there, yarn over twice, front post around the next one, through 2, stop there, yarn over twice, around the last one, through 2, and when we get to that 4 loops on our hook, yarn over through all of them. Then we're going to skip 3 stitches behind, and in that one that's in between we do the half stitch again, and that's our repeat. I'll do the side and show you how to do the other end of this side and the corner. Okay, I've done my last gathering of the big stitches. I need to do a half treble UK, half WS in that next stitch, and then I do a front post double treble UK, front post triple US around the round 57 stitch, and another one around the next round 57 stitch. I skip those 2 stitches behind, do a treble UK, a double US in the next stitch, which is the last one of the side, and then our corner is 3 stitches, trebles UK, doubles US, 1 in the 2 chain space, 2 and 3, and then we're back to doing our pointy bits again. Okay, here we are at the end of round 59, so I've just got to do my 2 front post stitches around the 57 stitches. Oops. And we do a stitch in the this last stitch and then a single stitch in the same space as our first stitches and join with a slip stitch to the top of your third chain or your false stitch. There we have it, round 59 done. Alright, here we are at the start of round 60. So you've joined with a slip stitch to the middle stitch of 3 of a corner. We're going to start with chain 3 starting chain or a false stitch, and then we're going to do a treble UK WS in the same stitch as your slip stitch, the middle one of your corner. Then we are going to do a front post treble UK or front post WS around the next 4 stitches. So we have 1, 2, 3, and 4. And this is where we start our repeat for along the side. So we've got a small stitch and then your large cluster. In each small stitch we're just going to do 1 treble UK WS, and then for each of these cluster stitches we're going to do 2 stitches. One of them we're going to go in, so in the big hole, and then we'll also do a front post treble UK WS around the same stitch. So a stitch in the stitch between the clusters, a stitch in the next cluster, and around that same cluster. So you can see it brings the points into a firmer point. Alright, so that's that. I'll show you the other side on the corner in a moment. Okay, so after you've done the front post around the last cluster, you still need to do a stitch in the small stitch here, treble UK WS. Then it's 4 front post stitches. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And the next stitch should be the middle one of your 3 stitch corner, where you do 3 stitches in that middle stitch. 1, 2, 3, and then we're back to our front post stitches. There you have it. Okay, here we are at the end of round 60. I just need to do a stitch in the same stitch as our first stitches, and then join with a slip stitch to your first stitch,